I really don't like talking about my feelings. As I've gotten older, I've become more of a keep it all in, keep it moving, don't let it get you down so long as you can, and just keep pushing through. And I think that's definitely one of the unhealthiest ways you can deal with any of your problems or any of your feelings in general. You really shouldn't keep everything inside and keep everything to yourself. It's not good for you. It all comes back out one point or another, and it's just all around unhealthy. At least that's what I've been told. Has it stopped me? Not really at all, but maybe one day I'll be more open and honest with my feelings about things. And it's kind of ironic coming from me when my whole channel is based around talking about my feelings and emotions and things like that, but in person, I don't like talking about it. I don't like to tell people if I'm sad or if I'm mad or whatever. I just don't like talking about it. I like to keep it in. I like to let it build up and eventually I explode. Not really on anybody, but more just in my room. I will crumble down, break down, and get over it by myself, or try to at least. And sometimes it works, not always. Sometimes you just sit on these feelings for ages and ages, and it just keeps piling up and piling up and piling up. But it's just kind of how I am. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's how I've always been. I've always been a bit of a emotional person when it comes to just in general. I've never been one to shy away from my feelings. I mean, I used to throw like temper tantrums in the store when I didn't get the things I wanted and stuff like that, which I suppose is a little different when you're a little kid like that. But in general, I've always been an emotional person. I've always tried to be in tune with my emotions and knowing how I feel or why I feel a certain way. But that doesn't really change the fact that I won't talk to anybody about it, even if I have people that know something's wrong or care about, because there's been times in my life where there's just nobody that cares. There's nobody to talk to that I want to talk to, that I can share my feelings with. And even when there are people that care about how I feel, I just don't really like talking about it. I don't like to bring it up. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it could be that I just don't want to feel like I'm burdening somebody with my issues and just don't feel, I suppose, justified in complaining or venting or whatever it might be. But I'm really not sure where it all started. I think it was probably somewhere around middle school, my teenage years. I think part of it is because growing up, my dad's always been a pretty unemotional person. Like, obviously, when he's happy, and but when it comes to like sadness and things, like I don't think I've ever seen my dad cry, which sounds pretty stereotypical. But truthfully, so I don't know if maybe somewhere in my subconscious I felt like I needed to be more like him and maybe more manly man, if you will, and not talk about my feelings, not show my emotions, don't cry, whatever. And like anger, I just really don't get angry. At least for a long time, I feel like I just don't get angry. I think I grew up around a lot of angry people. My brothers and my dad have always been very quick to get mad and start yelling, and I've always tried to avoid being that way. I don't like yelling, especially not at people. I just don't like to get angry in general. It's never been a good feeling for me to get angry. And so if I do get angry, again, I just like to keep it inside. I like to build it all up and not let anybody know. And I've been told many times my eyes are a dead giveaway when I'm in a bad mood. It's apparently it's really easy to read on my face if I'm unhappy or if I'm whatever the case may be. Like I said, I don't really get angry, or at least I used to not get angry, so it's usually just I have sad eyes, I guess, if you will. But even when I'm confronted about not feeling well, I'm very quick to diverge the situation and try to flip the subject to something else and ignore it and, oh, I don't know why I look that way or whatever the case is. Instead of just being open and honest and saying how I feel, I'd rather just bottle it all up and keep pushing through because I guess at a certain point it felt like if I talk about my feelings, it's just gonna weigh me down more. Whereas if I just keep it all in, I can go home and process it to myself. And I think it's just because I don't like to admit how I'm feeling sometimes. I think sometimes it's easier for me to pretend it's not there and try to ignore it until I can't ignore it anymore. And then, even then, like I said, I'd rather just explode back in my own house than have to annoy somebody or just talk to somebody in general about it. And it's just always been easier for me to not and to deal with it on my own, even though a lot of the time that leads me to not really actually dealing with it at all. I just build it up and build it up and build it up, and eventually I snap and I can't do it anymore, which can lead to different situations. There's been times where my mental health got so bad that I took a month off from work, not even vacation time, just kept calling in because I couldn't stomach the thought of actually going to work. I was just in such a bad mental state, and I would never talk about it. I would never tell anybody how I was feeling. I just kept pushing and kept pushing and kept going, and eventually it caught up to me and broke me down and dragged me out, and it's just not good. It's just, and I can recognize that it's not good. I know that it's not good, and I have people that care about me that are more than happy to lend an ear when I need it. But for me, it's just easier not to. It's easier to pretend that I don't need it and that I don't need help or want help or whatever the case is. I'd rather just pretend I'm all right and keep moving, keep going. Like I said, I don't think I've always been this way, but it's definitely been a long time in my life that it's been this way now, where I just bottle it all up. Like I said, I don't tell anyone, don't do anything about it really. I don't, like I've said in a few videos, I don't go to therapy or anything of that sort, so my emotions don't really go anywhere. I suppose I've always tried to kind of funnel my emotions into other things, whether it's art or just a project as a whole, you know, work, whatever. Try to just funnel my emotions into something more positive or more healthy, which, I mean, it helps for sure. It helps me process things. Like drawing used to help me with processing my emotions and my bad thoughts as a whole. It was always my way to get over it because I've always tried to find some sort of healthy thing, something healthy to deal with my feelings. And I think talking about your feelings is probably the number one healthiest way, but that's, like I've said, not always an option. Whether you don't have people that care or you just don't feel justified in your feelings, like me, a lot of the time, as much as I've tried to be in tune with my emotions and I've always tried to feel my feelings, if you will, it doesn't change the fact that sometimes I don't feel justified in those feelings, and I feel like I feel a certain way, whether it's sad or angry or upset or whatever, frustrated, anything really, and I just don't feel like I deserve to be. Like, whatever has been bothering me is not good enough to be bothered about. And so there's no reason to tell anybody about it because they're just going to think I'm whining or complaining and stupid and whatever. So it's always just been easier to tuck it all away, push it all down, pretend it's not there, and not have to deal with it until I'm awake at 3 in the morning and I can't sleep because all I'm thinking about is why I'm so sad or mad all the time. So it's a bit of a hassle, honestly, but at the same time, it's a bit easier to deal with things that way and to just brush them off instead of, I mean, you can't always just ignore it and be like, oh, I'm not going to let this bother me, because some things are just going to be a little itch in the back of your head and you're never going to be able to forget about it. And it's just going to keep bugging you as much as you try to push it away and push it off. It's just always going to be there, waiting for the moment that you're not ready for it. Like I said, up at 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden you're just flooded with thoughts of why I'm so sad, or why am I so mad, or anything of that sort, really. It catches you when you least expect it. I mean, we're all different, right? We all have different amounts as to what we can handle, whether, I mean, in any situation, emotionally, physically, anything of the sort. I mentioned my dad, who seemingly is never phased by any feelings, and if he is, the only ones that I've ever seen are anger. I mean, he used to yell at me basically every morning before school, and by the end of the day, it was perfectly fine. Nothing was wrong or whatever. No more anger. But for me, I can't do things like that. I can't flip like that. When I'm stuck in a feeling, it's hard for me to get out of it. I suppose I've been on both sides of that spectrum. There's been times in my life where maybe I was just hurt so badly by something that I feel unfazed by anything else and nothing else can bother me. And there's other times where I want to cry at the slightest inconvenience to me. Could be something super small, like I drop a jar of pickles at work and all of a sudden I want to run to the back room and break down and start bawling my eyes out. And a lot of the time it's because I've just got so many other things in my mind that I've been pushing off and ignoring for too long that it just comes out and can't stop it, or I can't control it, or whatever it might be. But like I said, we all have different amounts as to what we can handle and what we can take on and how much we can brush off. For me, it's surprisingly quite a lot. I feel like I've become very good at pushing off my feelings. I've been very good at ignoring whatever is bothering me at the time or whatever until I can be in a better space to deal with those feelings, or just never deal with them at all and just act like they're, like I said before, act like they're not there, act like I'm not bothered and everything is happy dandy fine, whatever. It just varies from time to time. It always changes. That's kind of the dynamic of life, and it's all about trying to find a balance between what you can hang on to, or not hang on to, but what you can handle, and when you truly need that help or you need somebody to reach out to. And sometimes it can get you burned. I mean, I remember there was a time in middle school when I was going through an edgy, depressive phase because I was going through puberty or whatever, and I was just depressed about nothing, depressed about life, depressed about girls, whatever. And I used to just find all kinds of sad quotes and sad love quotes on Tumblr and whatnot, and I would send them all to my friend. I remember one day I was sending him some stuff that I found that I just, it's like, oh, I relate to this so much, whatever, even though I really didn't at all, but I was edgy and a kid and whatever. And then the next thing I know, there were cops knocking on my door because he told his mom that he thought I was suicidal, and that was traumatizing for me. And honestly, looking back on it now, he did the right thing. It was what a good friend would do if they were worried about somebody, what you should do if you're worried about somebody. But for me, being the edgy little preteen that I was, made me just horrified because I was like, why would you ever do something like this? Like, I'm confiding in you as my friend, and this is how you respond. You're gonna send police to my house to talk to me about my silly text messages, and now my parents are all worried about me, thinking I'm suicidal, and still never got put into therapy or anything. I probably wouldn't have gone if I did, but it just kind of burned me to a point where I was like, well, let me never tell anybody how I'm feeling about anything ever again, because I don't ever want something like that to happen to me again. So it just, like I said, it was kind of traumatic for me to deal with that. And I don't know. I guess in some ways it's my own fault for not having the most trustworthy friend. No, like I said, he did the right thing. It was a good thing to do. It was, I think it was the right thing to do. I think it's what you should do when you're worried about your friends. You should check in on them and whatever. I don't think you should jump straight to the extremes, like that was, to me at least, that felt pretty extreme. But again, when you don't really know, you don't really know. You don't know what that person might be going through or what might be eating up at them inside. And so I don't hold any ill will towards him. I don't talk to him anymore. I probably stopped talking to him after that day, but it's a long time ago. I can't really remember very well. But I think it did just kind of reinforce this idea that I don't need anybody and I don't need to talk about my feelings and I can handle everything on my own and I'm better off handling things on my own accord, which is not true at all. You're never better off handling things on your own, even if it feels like nobody will understand or nobody will care. It is truly the best way to get over any sort of feelings is to talk about them and feel them. You can't run from how you feel forever. It will always catch up. I know I said that before, but it's true. Your feelings will always catch up to you. You can only run for so long. And maybe you're an unfazed person. Maybe feelings like that don't bother you, or feelings in general just don't seem to bother you. And if that's the case, honestly, lucky you. Wish I could be that way sometimes, but it's beautiful to feel feelings. It's beautiful to be sad. It's lonely to just feel empty. Like I said, I've kind of been on both sides of that spectrum. There's been times where I am just unfazed and it just feels hollow and empty. I suppose sometimes your sadness can make you feel that same way, but it's good to feel feelings. It means you're still human. It means you're still alive. At least that's how I've always thought about it. How I've always tried to justify it to myself is if I'm sad, it means that my heart's still beating, right? But it does really help to have somebody to talk to. It really is important to get things off your chest and to, well, like I said, it's just important to feel your feelings. You should always feel what you feel and be okay with that. Don't ever let somebody diminish how you feel because they don't think it's that relevant or whatever. Everybody handles things differently, like I said before. We all are doing our best. We all handle things in different ways. We all process things in different ways, and maybe talking about it's not the healthiest thing for you. Maybe it's just not the easiest thing for you, whatever, but you should find something to help process your feelings. Don't just bottle them up and keep it pushing because eventually if you're anything like me, you're going to feel like a ticking time bomb and one little thing or one wrong word is just going to set you off and who knows what might happen after that. Maybe you'll stop going to school or you'll quit your job or who knows, really, maybe nothing. Maybe you'll just be ticking forever and it'll just be like a pot that won't boil over, but it's right there on the edge. I don't know. I can't speak for your feelings. I can only speak for my own. But thank you for listening to me talk about my feelings because I'm not very good at it. So I try to make it clear and concise and cover some main points here. But I don't know. Just I guess I'm tired of bottling everything up all the time. I'm tired of pushing everything off and acting like it's okay when it's really not. And this is my way of trying to justify that or undo that and trying to just feel my feelings because I keep repeating it and I don't know a better way to put it. But that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I love you all so much. Please find better ways to deal with your emotions if you don't have any. And if you truly don't have anybody to talk to, feel free to just trauma dump on me in the comments. I always have an open ear for anybody that needs somebody. I'll always be here. I might not be the fastest to respond, but I'll always be listening and I will have something nice to say in response. That sounds so cringy. Whatever.